So, lesson 3 is classifying triangles and important lines in triangles. So I want to really stress the fact that we are going to learn 3 definitions here. One is for a median, one is for an altitude, and one is for a perpendicular bisector. And the battle is, okay, so in every question like that, you are going to come up with the equation of a line. And we know in the equation of a line, you need a slope and a point. The battle in this lesson is knowing which slope and which point to use. So I found that in my first quadmester, guys really thought they had a good handle on the work because they were really proficient at determining the equations of lines given a slope and a point, but kind of crashed and burned when they realized that, like, they were having trouble figuring out which slope and which point to put into that formula. So I really, really want to stress today that what you need to know after we leave today is in a median, an altitude, and a right bisector, you have to determine the equation of a line given some slope and some point, and you need to know which ones, okay? So after this lesson, you need to be able to do 2 things. You need to be able to define a median, altitude, and I think in your title it says mean. I'm sorry, I kept writing mean instead of median. And guess what? We've already done perpendicular bisectors, so that's good. Okay, and we need to determine the equations of all 3 of these. So in order to do that, I need to know which point and which slope to put into the formula y minus y line equals mx minus x line. Okay, so really stressing the fact here that the hard part is figuring out the point and the slope. So you need a conceptual understanding of median, altitude, and right bisector. Yes, or memorize them, whatever, right? And what's nice is because this course is open book, you have this page that you can open and read, okay? So, we're actually going to start with median, okay? So what is a median? Let's just have a look at it. A median, so median, it's the middle, right? If I were to take the median grade of all my grade 10s right now, what I would do is I would list them from lowest to highest or highest to lowest and find the person in the middle. And that's the median grade. Okay, that's what it means. It's the median. So a median is a line that joins a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. So let's just take a look at this triangle. So what we do is we look at a vertex. The line starts from the vertex, and then we compute the midpoint of the opposite side. And my goal is to find the equation of this line. Well, how am I going to do that? I need a point and I need a slope. So, which point can I use to solve this line, to determine this line? Yep?
Don't you have to find the midpoint?
Sure, I can use the vertex or the midpoint. So in this case, I'm given an option, right? What is the slope I'm going to use? Like, how do I find the slope? Yep.
Isn't it y2 minus y1?
Yes. Sure, but of what? It's the slope between V and M, the vertex and the midpoint. So I need to figure out the slope of those 2 points using the slope formula. So underneath this, we have an example, okay? So normally I don't give you like the graph, right? We're gonna use the graph and we're gonna like plot it all, but remember, I'm only looking at your calculations. So I want to determine the equation of the median from vertex A. Okay, so my first point is going to be this one. Now, where do I draw the median to, Brett?
So you have to find the midpoint between -2, -5, and 4 and 1.
What is the midpoint?
The midpoint is y, I don't know.
So we just add 4 and -2 to get 2. We divide that by 1. So no need to write out this computation. We can do it in our heads. And then I'm going to look at the y values, and I see 1 and -5. The midpoint is -2. So I did that in my head. Now I'm going to plot it, okay? Remember, this is for visualization purposes only, okay? This isn't our answer. But yeah, I can see that the midpoint is 1, -2.
So don't you draw a straight line in between?
Yes. So and not just like it goes all the way through, right? It's the equation of this line. Actually, I want this line to be purple. Okay. So tell me how I am going to now find the slope of this line.
Oh, there's slope in between. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Yes,
And then you take the coordinates from the 2 points. and
Yes.
That's how you find the slope.
Sorry, I just realized I wrote that this midpoint is -1, 2, but it's 1, -2, isn't it? 1, -2. Okay, so the slope is going to be 2 subtract -2 over -1 subtract 1. The slope is -2. So guys, I need to find a slope and a point to put in y minus y line equals mx minus x line. So I know my slope is -2. Which point do you guys want to put in? Because we have an option, right? I can either put in A, -1, 2,
Or midpoint.
or I can put in the midpoint 1, -2. Actually, they look almost identical, right? So let's vote. Who wants A? All right, oh no, don't split the class.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
No, I want C. C.
Can I be the
can't do it on
tiebreaker?
option.
What do you mean C? C isn't an option.
No. I meant
Okay.
Not A, not A. I meant
None of the above.
Okay.
that's not what I meant.
All right, so let's put this in. So we're going to get y plus 2 equals -2 x minus 1. And I'm just going to do some quick algebra in my head. I got -2x plus 2 minus 2. Isn't that 0? And that looks right, right? Like the y-intercept, oops, oh boy. The y-intercept is 0. Right? It goes through 0.
Isn't it x minus -1? Like, wouldn't it go from when you
It's
do...
what I did is the correct answer. So I'm putting in m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the other one. Sorry.
Okay. So we're good with that, right? So anytime I want the median, okay, I actually have 2 points I can choose from. It's the midpoint and the vertex. But I only have one slope, which is the slope between the midpoint and the vertex. So, pardon? We're finding the line. So the answer is this. So oops. The answer is y equals 2x. So what we're trying to do, -2x, we're trying to find the equation of this purple line. This thing is called the median. Okay, and we're trying to find the equation of that line. So yeah, we need a slope and a y-intercept. In this case, the y-intercept happens to be 0. The equation of this line is y equals negative 2x. Okay, it's got a slope of negative 2. You can even see it on the squares, right? And a y-intercept of 0. Okay, so slope and a point is what we need. So let's move on to something you've seen, I'm sure, because all of you already know how to calculate the area of a triangle. This thing called height or altitude. Now, height is a perpendicular line. Okay, it goes from a vertex perpendicular to the opposite side. So most times in questions that I give you and I ask you to find the area, the altitude exists within the triangle. Okay, but sometimes it's outside of the triangle. So basically what I do, and I've done this once already, is I have to find where from this point it's perpendicular to the opposite side, right? And it looks like right there. Okay, so what I have to do is I only have, in this case, one point, right, with which I have to determine the equation of that line. So I have no options for my points. What about the slope of this line? How do I figure out the slope of this line? What do you think, Brett?
You would take the coordinates, the vertex, and the coordinates of the middle line. I forget what it's called.
That's not the middle.
No, not the middle line. What's that line called?
I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with the vertex. How do I figure out the slope of this red line? I'm not going to use the vertex that I've labeled here. Yeah? Pardon? That's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to figure out the altitude.
It's 0, right?
It's
So
0.
undefined.
I mean, only because I've drawn this flat. What I want is, like, if this triangle was turned, I still can draw, like, figure out the altitude, right? Like, look at the one below it. We're about to find this altitude here, right? So how would I figure out the slope? Okay, maybe I'll give you the answer. What I do is, Peter, do you want to try it?
Is it not the negative reciprocal of the slope of the?
You got it. So what I do is I figure out this slope. Okay, I figure out that slope. And then I recognize that these two are negative reciprocals. All right. So every now and then the altitude exists on the outside of the triangle like this. So basically what I would have to do is extend AC so that the altitude is perpendicular. I wouldn't stress out about this. Like, it's not, I'll try to keep them within the triangle, but you just need to know that sometimes the altitude exists on the outside. That's not the case here. So let's determine an equation of the altitude from vertex A again. So I did that on purpose. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're starting with A. Okay, and remember, now I'm going to draw this line perpendicular to the opposite side, right?
Yeah.
So, like there-ish, right?
How would we draw that on a test? You know that we're.
You're never going to draw it, right?
Oh, okay.
You're calculating it. I am using diagrams just as a visual to help us, but we know that we're just going to calculate it. You don't have to. Graphing is just the visual that helps me think about the calculations I need to do.
So you don't even have to know what point it is on the bottom part. You need to know the top of it.
You can, so finding that intersection point is a lesson on its own. Okay, it's a lesson 3.6 called distance from a point to a line. You have to use points of intersection. It's hard to find that intersection. I know here visually it's nice, but that's not always the case. What we need to do next, Brett, is this a question?
No.
What do we do next?
You find the slope of C and B.
That's right. So now, in order to figure out the slope of this line, Okay, what we need is the slope of BC. So that's 1 plus 5 over 4 plus 2, which is 6 over 6, which is 1. And it does look like 1. I can see the rise and the run. They're both 1. So, I'll give you guys a sec to copy this down.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, so we need the negative reciprocal, right? So the slope of this line is going to be perpendicular to 1. And what is that?
-1.
-1. Okay. So in this case, it's really, I don't have any options for my slope and my point. I know my point has to be A. That's the only point I know on this line. So when I go to do y minus y line, I have no options, which in some cases is nice. Okay, so I get y subtract 2 equals -1 x plus 1. My final answer is -1 minus 1 plus 2 gives me -x plus 1. And because we just did the linear systems unit and we graphed a whole bunch of lines, I can actually see that, yeah, this has an x-intercept of 1 and it's got a slope of -1. That looks right. So the graph is always there to help you reaffirm what you know. Okay, and help you set up the calculations. But what am I marking? I'm marking this and this and this, right? Just the calculations. Okay, guys, the last one we've already done. So it's a nice little repeat of the morning. Okay, remember, a right bisector, so we said perpendicular bisector. The definition's right in there in the name. Bisect means cut in half, exactly in half. And the right part means 90 degrees. So I have a picture of a right bisector here. And we know, so if this is the equation that I'm trying to find.
It's the same triangles, right? You have midpoint, just one.
Yes, that's right. So if I'm trying to figure out the equation of this line, what I need is a point and a slope. The point is going to always be the midpoint of my, like, whatever endpoints I'm given. Okay, I know it doesn't look like it here, but I mean, these points are points that you would be given. So you would take the midpoint of those points, and then what we need to do to find the slope of the red line is, again, you would find the negative reciprocal. Yep, Peter?
But since it's the same triangle, we already know the midpoint.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, I could give you another question. I obviously did this to save us a little bit of time. So if I want to know the right bisector of BC, yes, I have to start with the midpoint, which we already calculated to be 1, -2. Okay, so the line that is perpendicular here, okay, looks, I think, like this.
Oh, it does?
Ish, right? Because it's got to be perpendicular to the slope
Oh, yeah.
of
Yeah, we
BC.
just connected the dots.
That's a median though, right?
Yeah.
So what I need is the slope of BC, and guess what, guys? We also did that in a previous question. The slope of BC is 1. Yeah, so the reciprocal is going to be -1. And what you'll notice is that the right bisector and the altitude are parallel. They have the same slope, but they go through different points, right? Okay, so here is my slope, and I know my point has to be, there's only one choice here, right? So the median is the only one that has the option. Okay, here we know our slope, we know our point. So guys, I recognize that it's kind of a lot to keep straight, and that really is the battle, is keeping straight like which points and which slopes we've got to do.
Is this last lesson with you?
I'm so
No.
happy.
No, not even close.
I'm so happy that
What's
this
the
test is
what's
over
the
because
slope?
I would be screwed if this test was no.
Plus 1. Okay, so we've got,
Take good notes, Brendan.
Yeah.
okay.
Get this thing break down into an inch or
Okay, so I think we've got a good summary here. That's why I know it's a bit cramped, but having it all on one page is kind of nice. Okay, so we only have 3 examples in this lesson. I am going to, the second one is actually pretty short. The last one's kind of long. So let's go through them together. And then I will give you the rest of basically the day to do homework. I am going to give you back your tests and take them up.
Today?